The time is now for resistance. We're really in a situation where things are incredibly dire and they're only getting worse. I'm looking here at the latest article from Darjamail, who's doing some of the best climate reporting that we're seeing anywhere around the world. And let's just go through a few of the incredible, horrifying points that he's bringing up, things that are happening right now. First, in early January, not too long ago, there was a period where it was colder in Seattle than it was in Barrow, Alaska. Usually the high temperature in Barrow around this time of year is -5 degrees, and it was 33 degrees on that day. This is totally unprecedented. NOAA has concluded recently in their annual Arctic climate report that the Arctic is unraveling. Temperatures at the North Pole in late December were 50 degrees above normal, near melting point, and this is during the Arctic winter when there's literally no sunlight. It's pitch black all day long, and it was nearly 32 degrees Fahrenheit. It's the same unraveling is happening in the Antarctic. We're seeing huge cracks in the Larsen C ice shelf. There's a possibility that a giant iceberg is going to break off there. Moving on, it looks like this November, the Arctic and Antarctic had both hit record lows for sea ice coverage. And it just goes on and on. We can talk about forests and how they appear to be not regrowing very well after climate-induced wildfires with greater severity than historic wildfires, which are killing even the oldest and strongest of the trees. We could talk about the fact that the biggest reindeer herd in the world in Russia has lost 40% of its population in the last 17 years. We could talk about the fact that Hudson Bay, which is the center of polar bear populations of the world, was free of ice in November, which is unprecedented and is leading towards polar bear extinction within the next 30 years. This one's just stunning. An area of polar sea ice the size of India, which is double the size of Alaska, has vanished over the past year. Darjamail says parts of the Arctic were 36 degrees Fahrenheit above normal during some of the days this past November. 36 degrees above normal. Stunning, stunning. And so all this is happening, the Everglades are at risk of being completely flooded out with salt water because of sea level rise, which would completely destroy the ecosystem, the natural community there. And all this is happening as Trump's coming into office, and we're looking at climate deniers heading up every single agency that deals with anything climate related in this country. So we're looking at them expediting fossil fuel permits, letting through all these export terminals for liquefied natural gas and coal, facilitating the extraction of natural gas and fracking through the permitting process, allowing the states, which often means conservative states like Utah and Wyoming and so on, to set up their own processes to deal with the permitting for these things, which basically means they can go full steam ahead, and so on and so forth. Pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement, which, isn't something that was great in the first place, but it was something. And now we're moving in completely the wrong direction. The CEO of Exxon looks like it's going to be the Secretary of State here. So we're in a shockingly horrible situation right now. And what this points to me is that the time is now for resistance. There's no time to wait. And, I'm somebody who's engaged in protests. I've gone to rallies. I've took part in nonviolent civil disobedience. I've petitioned. I've participated in electoral politics, all of these things. And it hasn't been enough. And it's not going to be enough. When you look at the reality that we're facing, when you look at the scale of these problems, the speed with which they're taking place, we need much more. And that's why I look to the strategy like decisive ecological warfare, which basically says this is a war on the planet. As we've just heard, this is a war and we're losing. Look at those facts. Look at those statistics. Look at what's happening in your own communities around you. Look at the growth, the expansion, the development, the destruction that's happening. We need so much more. And I believe that we essentially need a revolutionary transformation. We need to overthrow these systems of power. And I think that that can be done in a variety of different ways, but one of the most effective, I believe, is sabotage. I think we need to shut these systems down physically by destroying the infrastructure that allows them to continue. Fossil fuel infrastructure, communications, finance, these things are all physical systems that rely on vulnerable pieces of infrastructure that are spread out and largely impossible to defend all the time. So this has to be done carefully, it has to be done right, it has to be done in as humane a way as possible, but we're in a situation of complete planetary emergency right now, and we need people to get all hands on deck. So I recommend check out the Deep Green Resistance website. We've got the strategy posted on there for anybody who's interested. Look, even if you don't agree with us, even if you're not down with us, check this out because anyone can learn from this. This is really serious stuff. We're in a complete emergency situation, like I'm saying. And, the strategy, decisive ecological warfare, has something to it. It may not be the only thing that pushes us over the edge. Like I say, there are other strategies that could work, but we're in a dire, dire time. And I think we need to look at some of the more outlying options for winning this fight. We need to look at things that you might write off at first, because this is life or death, and not just for individuals, but for the planet, for our whole species, for thousands and millions of other species on this planet. So I recommend checking out that strategy, read it, learn what you can from it. The book's available for free on the website. You can check it out. There's diagrams, there's ideas for strategic thinking, for tactics, for strategy, for security culture, for communications, and so on. So check that out, learn what you can, and resist, because we need to fight back. The time's now.